Hi, everyone. I'm Lori, and I am an alcoholic. And just to qualify, I have been through the process with a loving God, an amazing higher power, a Big Book Step Study sponsor, have made my amends and work 10, 11, and 12 on a daily basis to the best of my ability and my willingness. I just set my timer because I don't want to overtalk. I love this chapter. It's probably one of my favorite chapters in the book. I love these guys, and part of my directions when I was, beginning, this process, I had to look up words and highlight things that I could identify with, and I'm so grateful for that. And this part, I really have a lot highlighted, and I could really identify. This was really where I could really begin to see where I was, a real alcoholic. I love even the ending of this page. I was just put my little thing in here so I didn't forget to say that I was just like Jim and Fred and the guy of 30. I was 100% hopeless apart from, I was so far separated from my higher power or any divine help. And it was really, it must have been pretty heartbreaking for my mother to see that. I also have a son who's 36 years old, and he's been battling this really since he's been a young man. And it was where I started as well. I was probably about 12 before I had my first substance, by the time I had my first substance, and it just progressed from there. And so it's heartbreaking to see him too, but you know what? I have a higher power today, and I sit with him in prayer. I have my tears. It is what it is, and I give it to God, and then I walk out the door, and I give my worries and my fears to Him now. I don't let those things own me and control me anymore, right? Because I can't be of service to other people or to God if I'm worrying and in fear, living in fear about other things, So I'm so grateful. But I was useless. I was hopeless and completely. Like these guys, I battled this for many, many years. My last 5 years were a big blur, but I remember over and over again, and the first page I love, it talks about that delusion. And when I looked up the word delusion, it means false belief, unsound reasoning, basically the lie that I would always tell myself that, I can control my drinking, And then the next paragraph says, in italics, and anything you see in italics in this book, you might want to kind of reread it. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control, ever. And that was me. I didn't know that. I didn't know, I thought it was I had this strong will, and the book is telling me my self-will, my self-knowledge is ineffective. It's not, because I have a permanent condition, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that I had an allergy, so I'm trying to control my drinking every day, and I can still kind of talk about my drinking because we're still on step one. But this here talks about that unmanageability, the control drinking, and like myself, that day never came for me to ever try to, regain any kind of control. That never happened because of the allergy that I have. And over any considerable period of time, we get worse. We never get better. And that's what happened. So it is a progressive disease. It's permanent, right? I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. It's progressive. It's never going to get better. Like these guys, they picked up. These guys had double digits of sobriety, 25 years, bone dry, and they were qualified to drink. That peculiar mental twist, that stinking thinking, right? I got PMS, but this is PMT. Peculiar mental twist, my brain, my thinking. It's And this is why I could really identify with these guys. They talk on page 31. I highlighted, the limiting the number of drinks. Okay, switching from scotch to brandy. And it goes on, and swearing a solemn oath. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to have a couple. And it was this battle day after day after day. This is what these guys were going through. I could really identify with that pain and that torture, with wanting to stop, the real desire to want to stop, but you can't. And I really, I love, about Jim. I just picked this up in this reading, and I never noticed it till just now. I didn't have a pen, but I found it very moving when people actually went back to Jim over and over again, helping him. See, they never turned his back on him, you know. And even, you know, when women have come to me more than once in the past, you know, they would go away for a while, then they'd call me back. Like, I would never deny an alcoholic, ever. You know, I just wouldn't do that, you know. If somebody picks up the phone and they need help, we start over again, you know. And that page really kind of just stood out for me, you know. That just was kind of just profound for me. And, you know, when somebody reaches out the phone, you know, and there is that saying in AA, and I forget how it goes, you know, we're always going to be there for the hand of the alcoholic. But I love this one here, the man of 30, you know, doing a great deal of spree drinking, you know, bone dry for 25 years. Boom, out came his copper slippers in a bottle. But then dead within 4 years. That would have been me. You know, I don't know where I would have ended up. I really don't, you know. I mean, I kind of really like Jim's story, because they talk about he keeps going back to the asylums. I kept going back to detox, you know. I should have been dead. I don't know, you know, why God saw fit, but booze and drugs couldn't fix me no more. And, you know, but, you know, just repeated going back over and over again to those asylums or detoxes, you know. I don't know if they considered that a detox back then, but, you know, so, you know, the page says, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And that's in quotations. And I know that about me today. I know, like I said, I mean, this disease is progressive, it's patient, it's permanent, it's fatal. These three guys just summed that right up. You know, I don't care how much time you have in this program, you know, and that's just how I feel about that. Like, numbers don't mean anything to me. It's the quality of your sobriety. You know what I mean? And you know, so it's not always about the sobriety. And these guys had double digits of sobriety. You know what I mean? So, but they had no spiritual solution. You know, they didn't have the spiritual solution. So their thinking, you know, was still distorted. They hadn't done anything on the inside here. I love how it talks about all of those feelings. I think I touched on that peculiar mental twist, limiting the number of drinks. And then we go over to page 37, and then it talks about the other I call it the inner unmanageability, right? Because in some circumstances we've gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified, the nervousness, the anger, the worry, the depression, the jealousy, you know? So the unmanageability for me is about like two parts. The unmanageability means, you know, I can never ever recover control, okay? All right, that'll never happen. And then here is the inner unmanageability, because this is the stuff I drank over. Okay, for me, you know, I sought relief, you know, booze and drugs had always been my solution, and that's where I seek relief through. I seek relief, like Jim, I love it. He talks about, like, you know, putting that whiskey in with his milk. Never once thought of the consequences. I never thought of any consequences when I was thinking about drinking. My brain wasn't telling me, you know, I was gonna, you know, this guy, you know, Fred, the guy 30 died. You know, his brain didn't tell him he was gonna die when he picked up that drink. You know, my brain's not gonna tell me I'm gonna cause harm to myself or to other people when I pick up that drink. You know, I'm drinking to seek relief from those inner failings. That's what I drank over, you know, and that's, you know, the inner unmanageability that I call it, the untreated alcoholism, the spiritual malady, spiritually blocked off from self-centered fear, whatever you want to call it, they all mean the same thing. And so those, you know, so that was why I drank. I had no solution. We can also actually even go over to, there's a lot of the unmanageability in this book that they talk about, you know, the tornado running through people's lives. I mean, that's another scenario, you know, of being spiritually blocked off. You're not doing any, you know, seeking out a spiritual solution. You know, we run through people's lives. That was me. You know, I'll cause havoc, you know. And usually it means just, you know, destroying relationships. And relationships are everything to me today, because there was so much damage there. Because I know how I drink, and I know how I drink and drug. And, you know, so the things that are most important to me will get pushed aside, and because my alcoholism becomes paramount. So we are absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. You know, so I had this this broken mind, that was where the problem lies. My self-will was completely ineffective, and a broken mind can't fix a broken mind, so it was over and over and over again. I was trying to fix myself. I love Fred, and Fred was actually, Fred said, he believed himself to be an alcoholic. Would not believe it, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. And I could really identify with that because I was trying to fix myself, and wasn't, taking the help. I was always successful in licking my other personal problems. I mean, I could really identify with Fred with all of that. And then, Fred again, had that thought. The thought came again, and it's in italics. There goes that thinking, that peculiar mental twist. And he was caught off guard too. He made no fight whatever, not thinking about any consequences. So for me, they talk about the choice in this chapter too. There is no choice for me. Once I put that drink in me, there's no more choice after that. I can't manage my own drinking. I need God's help to do that. And I love how Fred talked about, the discovery of the spiritual principle would solve all his problems, and he finally surrendered. And that was my case too. I finally surrendered. Anybody can put the booze and drugs down, but it's about surrendering, and that was where, when I was 2 years sober, the pain was great enough, pain always being a motivator, and I finally surrendered. And that was when I took on, I found a sponsor who took me through these 12 steps. I'm so grateful it was through Big Book Step Study. I would sit in numerous meetings, prior to coming to Big Book Step Study, and, people had what I wanted. They were, 13, 15, 20 years sober, but I couldn't wait 15 years to feel better, man. I was ready to check out. And, and doing it through this format, it was so thorough. And it was just through the book, the way the 12 people knock Big Book Step Study. I'm not sure why. I guess maybe it's ego, but this is the 12 steps. It's just a thorough way of doing the steps, and it teaches you to recycle. Once we do this work, it's not done. It teaches us to recycle these steps. That is where I look at my selfishness and my faith. The steps are all about getting out of yourself and moving towards your higher power. And it keeps it real for me like that. So, we have the bedevilments on page, 52. Those all work into that spiritual malady that I suffer from. When I did my, after my 5th step, I did, the 6 and 7, and the 6 and 7 is really, the character defects and God's characteristics. And I found a site that I absolutely love, where it gives a list of character defects, and on the opposite side is God's characteristics. So, if I'm struggling with one of my character defects, I can go right to that and go, this is what I'm struggling with, and I can ask God for help on it. Or if it comes out throughout the day, I see it in step 10, because when these things crop up, which they will, every day, because I'm an Elkie, so I have to look at this stuff. I have to look at what's going on. My character defects are my negative, they're all negative, and that's not God. God is all love, so his characteristics are just the opposite, and I have to ask for help every day. So that this work is just, the work isn't done when it's done. I have to keep moving forward every day, because if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backwards. Bottom line, man, and I never want to be where I was, ever. And so I keep coming. I am truly grateful, for this and all of you, and I really just would love to hear from everyone else. But if you're new here and you're really, thinking about maybe you're not an alcoholic, and maybe you're not, but you know what, if you read this chapter, this is probably a good beginning, for you to start. If you're new here and you're thinking maybe, you're questioning it, this is probably a good place to start. So, and if you are new here, welcome. Thank you.